Good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and especially to the members of the fourth estate. Thank you for coming. This conference, which some of our people for some reason like to call an address to the nation or whatever, is really meant to address just few issues. First of all, we are all aware that we have been engaged in pushing back against what is a terrible crisis, the state of the crisis of most people in Uganda that we think must be urgently addressed. And we started activities to push for this crisis to be addressed. But shortly after starting, some of us were arrested and spent some time in jail. And so today, I intend to address two issues. Unfortunately, when the sun is too strong, one of my eyes, which got a problem, keeps challenging me. So today I intend to address just two problems, or two issues. The first is the prison interlude that some of us have had. What that meant, what we have seen from that interlude. And secondly, how from here we address this crisis. And we are now seeing very promising signs of ending this crisis. So we want to discuss how this crisis gets effectively confronted and pushed back. When we were arrested 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks ago now, the first thing that I think the country witnessed was the state of our judiciary. Because, as you all heard, I was only charged. First of all, we were arrested, 4 of us from the same place for the same issues, and the prosecution decided to manage us differently. But what was that was not surprising at all, because prosecution is directly a part of the junta, part of the executive. Prosecution is It's supposed to be independent also. The DPP is supposed to be independent, but that one lost its independence long time ago. The DPP is part and parcel of the executive, is ordered to do whatever they want. So what the DPP does not surprise anybody. But the judiciary, which is the last front for liberty to adjudicate, to ensure that there is fairness in the country, once that institution collapses, then you know that there is total collapse of the rule of law, and with it the freedoms of citizens and the rights. And so that was one of the things that was witnessed immediately, that somebody charged with inciting violence should be given a condition of bail of 30 million shillings. And even these judicial officers and other government officials, I know they want promotions, they want all kinds of things for themselves, but surely don't they have any regard at all for their respect as a human, as a person, you know? Because I believe they have families, they have, you know, find somebody, you know, throwing away their credibility totally on account of pleasing somebody else. So what we have witnessed, I think, is that judiciary now is on its knees. And you can see even from the ones who are getting promoted, because recently they promoted some, I don't know, 30 or something. Somewhere here they are acting, another funny situation in the judiciary, that you are an acting judge waiting to be confirmed by somebody who may be tried by you, or whose matters may come before you. So, and when you see those who make it to those lists of people to be appointed, very, very strange criteria that must be used now in the judiciary. Because I saw somebody like Dr. Singiza, the person who sent Kakwenza, who was tortured badly and brought before him before the courts opened when there was nobody at work, and he remands a tortured person. That is one of the acting judges. I hope I won't have to appear before him. So this was one of the things that the prison interlude brought out. The second thing, which is a very happy one for us as activists and for the country, was the spur of women activism. Because when we were arrested, I was already in prison in Rosira myself, and I saw women, you know, in full force on the streets, being, you know, effective in demonstrating the grievances that they can, against the grievances that the country face. And so I think the prison interlude has helped us to spark this wonderful women activism that we saw, that included the deputy Lord Mayor, the Honorable Anna Dek, MP of Soroti, who, together with the other women leaders, undertook that brave demonstration. Yes, Mariam is here, was one of the activists who has also just come out of prison. And it's not just the demonstration that they carried out which caused their arrest, but for me, what even stood out was how they reacted in front of those who had arrested them. Because when they were brought to court to ask for bail, again, the court said they cannot examine the credentials of the sureties. They needed a week to do so. Something which is ridiculous. Because the national identity cards are national identity cards. What do you need to examine on them? That you must take a week looking at the national identity card. So they did that to, again, scare the ladies that they can spend time in jail. So they said, you should come back on Monday. And they said, no, we shall come back on Tuesday. They added on another day on what the court had. That is true defiance. The court was thinking that by giving them a week, they will scare them. The women said, no, a week is not enough. Add on. That is what liberation takes. And that was sparked and demonstrated during this prison interlude. So really, we must congratulate the women for providing a leadership. They have stepped up to provide a leadership for the country in crisis. And once women step forward and become convicted as they are, you can know that this is a sign for good. That's why I say that there are many signs now which show that this crisis will be really effectively driven back. But also alongside that incarceration, there was also, I think, a happy sign when I saw at the court, as the women were being released, many members of parliament from different parties, including the leader of opposition, many NUP MPs, FDC MPs, come together to support the women activists in what was going on. It started to demonstrate the spirit of Twegate Tulumbe Twetase. So it is coming on. And I must thank the members of parliament that came to show that solidarity and support at the courts. Now, I think it would be unfair to leave the prison interlude without touching a few things about the prison itself. First of all, I must say that while in prison, and I have been there many times, different prisons, Ruzira, the different types of Ruzira. I've been to Nakasongola, I've been to Moroto, I've been to some of these prisons, and I have been well treated wherever I have gone. And I am grateful to the prisons officers who look after us well. The only thing I complain about is that every effort is done to isolate me while in prison, so that I don't interact with other prisoners. In fact, I more or less become a prisoner within the prison. And if a prisoner somehow manages to sneak through and get to me, they are also put under prison within the prison. For example, there was another activist, Buembo Habib, whom I found there. He was very excited, of course, to learn that I had come, so he came to greet me and was seen with me. That was before they imposed the strict cordon around me, and that was the end of seeing him. He was taken to a prison within the prison. So there is that, but otherwise, I think we are handled professionally and fairly. But there are very serious problems within the prisons. And I think it's important that we also talk about them. One of them is the inhuman overcrowding. Terrible overcrowding. People sleep on top of others, literally. And while I was in Maction Bay, one of the prisoners died at night in the ward. And there is even no alarm system in the ward. So once there is a lockdown and the prisoners are locked down at 4 p.m., everybody is locked down in their cell, in their wards, until 6:30 in the morning or 7 when they open. There is no communication between the ward and the administration. So even when there is an emergency within the inmates, the only form of alerting anybody is to make traditional alarm. Shout at the top of their voice until somebody hears and comes to. So one prisoner actually died while we were there. This overcrowding is, a lot of it could be avoided. There are many people on remand on all kinds of minor offenses who have spent long periods of time on remand without getting a hearing, including political prisoners. There are many political prisoners. The prisoners who were arrested in 2020 during the campaigns, they are still there. Most of the political prisoners who are rotting in jails are managed by the court-martial. The military court-martial is the vehicle that is being used or abused to incarcerate citizens, ordinary citizens who have never had anything to do with the military, who have not been arrested with guns or anything, but simply because they are politically opposed to the regime, they are grabbed, taken to the military court-martial, remanded. Many are still there. Those who were arrested in 2020, they are still in no trial, nothing, under the military court-martial. I found one in Maction Bay called Muhaidin Kakoza. I think he's also known as Sanya. He's been there since 2020, charged on the same file with 30 others in the court-martial. Now, I think this is a terrible thing that all citizens must be aware of and must challenge, so that we put an end to it. Everybody is potential to suffering this kind of injustice. And maybe last on this point is prison, using remand prisoners for labor. A remand prisoner is an innocent person under the law. They must be presumed innocent. They are only being held so that they can be availed to court whenever they are needed for trial. In other words, they should live as free, as normal a life as any other citizen. The duty of the prison is only to ensure that they come to court. But otherwise, they should even leave phones with them and all other things that they need. There is no reason why they shouldn't. They are ordinary people whom somebody simply has alleged something. But prisoners, and even putting on prison uniform should be optional for remands. But as soon as you land, even if it's at night, they must put you in the yellow uniform. You know? But more importantly, criminal. So to vacate that point, I think it is important, and maybe our legal people should consider how to advance it. We know that all state institutions are captive. But I think even without the junta, without rule of a junta, it's important to have a prisons inspection commission, some independent body, like we have an inspectorate of government. I think there should be an inspectorate of prisons. All prisons, whether they are those under Uganda prisons or the police cells or the military cells, I think there should be an inspectorate that reports to Parliament regularly on the condition of all formal detention centers or prison places. So the second point of our interest this morning is ending the ever-increasing human crisis that our country faces. Because that's why we are where we are. That's why the prison, why it's the human crisis that we are confronting. And so, even while we were going through that period of interlude, it was noticeable that the junta propaganda machine has been in overdrive to create distortions and misrepresentations and all forms of propaganda around what we are doing. And so, the purpose here is to reiterate what we are doing and how it ends. And as I have said, I think the end is in sight. So, first of all, to reiterate what we have said before, is that this crisis is not primarily a result of COVID and the war in Europe. It's not. The Ugandan crisis is not primarily a result of what the government propaganda, even helped by some foreigners, whom I also talk about, trying to show this is an international thing, everybody is suffering around the world, this is normal, you know. No. This is not primarily a crisis arising out of COVID, lockdowns, or the war in Ukraine. This crisis is primarily a result of the capture of the state of Uganda by armed cabals, whom you can call the junta. That's where the crisis comes from. The capture of the state capture of all state institutions by armed cabal, armed groups capturing the state and controlling fully the state institutions, all state institutions, capturing and controlling all state institutions. That's where the crisis originates from. Because once the armed cabal captures all state institutions, they have a free hand to exploit the population. So there has been massive exploitation of the people of Uganda over the last many years, but the worst form of exploitation of the people of Uganda has been under the Museveni junta. The worst ever. And this should not surprise you also, because it is the worst ever capture of the state of Uganda. It is the worst ever since Uganda became a country. Because when the British captured Uganda, they somehow shared some power with the local people. They created some indirect control. So locals had some influence under the British. But secondly, maybe they had some moral issues also, because they were foreigners who had captured other people. So they were at least pretending to provide some kind of services to the people. So they did not have as, you know, comprehensive control as has been experienced under the NRM regime. The NRM regime, the problem is that the armed cabal that captured the state was created by Museveni himself. He created the military, the NRA, he created it himself, commanded it, built it, promoted it, it captured the state, he continues to command it up to today. So he has full effective control of the state capture. And it has therefore been used most perniciously to exploit the population of Uganda, taking away from the people through outright robbery, maybe one would call it, of the state assets, because whatever were state assets are no longer state assets, they have gone. All our state assets are now private assets of the cabal, including most of the state land, the land that belonged to state institutions. That's why the land of railways, the land of commercial bank, the land of all the state institutions is now private land. But on top of that, the imposition of taxes and taking money from people without putting back, money being put more on regime protection, how to keep in power, through bribing people with jobs, with money, with all kinds of things, not serving the population. Corruption that has become systemic. The building of the force to keep them in power. The military building, putting money in the military security, what to keep them in power. You must have seen in the state of what Museveni called the State of the Nation address. He was saying the reason, of course he was talking about progress, which I am going to talk about, that the reason Uganda has remained stable and progressed is the military. He says it's the NRA, the UPDF. That's the key reason why we have been stable and why there has been progress. Now, if your stability depends on the military, it means your stability depends on coercion, depends on force, not on willful support of government. And it's his admission that he only maintains stability by using UPDF. Any country whose internal stability depends on the military is a junta. That's the exact definition of a junta. If your stability depends on the military, you are a junta. Because the work of the military is not internal people. It is to defend the country against aggression from other people. It's not to maintain law and order and see, how people become harmonious. No. So his own admission is that he governs Uganda as a junta. And so, with the state capture, they use our money the way they want. That's the opulence. Find that state house budget in these years is close to $1 trillion. $1 trillion. During the COVID pandemic, the money we borrowed under the COVID pandemic to help Ugandans in the pandemic nearly $1 trillion was taken to State House for secret work, secret COVID work. In the home, not in the office, in the home of Mr. Museveni. In this month of June, just this month of June, the budget of 2021-2022 will end on the 30th of June. But at the beginning of this month of June, they have increased the State House budget supplementary by 77 billion. You know, in the last month, and have already budgeted in the next budget, I think 680 billion from July. And that will be consumed by December. We shall be having a supplementary already. And this goes on as Ugandans are dying of hunger, of what? People are being thrown out of, have no homes, have no medicine, have no, you know, but they continue eating as they want. That is the real cause of the crisis. The defense expenditure. Uganda has never been at war with any of its neighbors. There is no threat that I am aware of. At least the government has not told the Ugandans that there is a threat from Rwanda or from Congo or from Sudan. Nobody has told us that there is a threat. But the amount of money we put in defense when there is no medicine, when our children cannot go to school, you know, when the roads are impassable, that is where this crisis comes from. So because those who captured the state have been sucking the blood of all Ugandans, we said long time back that in Uganda now there are two types of people. We have two Ugandas in one. We have the prosperous Uganda of the junta people who are very prosperous, partying, party after party after. There is that Uganda, party after party. The Uganda is there. And there is the Uganda in crisis. So you have two Ugandas, the partying Uganda and the Uganda in crisis. Now I think people are starting even to call the Uganda of bread and the Uganda of cassava. There are two Ugandas. That is the crisis. We are talking about the Uganda in crisis, not the other Uganda. The address of Mr. Museveni and his prosperity and those who are about to reach, I don't know, middle income or whatever, those are the partying Uganda, not the Uganda in crisis. And yes, all the money of the country is with them. If they, you see, if I have 1 billion shillings here myself. And all of you, if you are 1,000 here, all of you have nothing in your pocket. The average money each one of us has is 1 million shillings. Not so? You are 1,000 empty pockets. I am 1 billion shillings. The average money all of us have is 1 million shillings. That's what Mr. Museveni is saying. That now every Ugandan has about 1 million shillings. Although the money that is being divided amongst the Ugandans is in the pocket of one person. And he's saying, so if everybody has 1 million shillings, we are a middle income country. What sort of cynicism, how more cynical can a junta be? You see? So, Ugandans have lived in crisis for long. In fact, from my own medical experience, I use the word chronic. The crisis of Ugandans, the failure to thrive crisis, has been a chronic crisis. A chronic crisis, the one which has lasted so long. When you have a chronic condition, you start moving with it normally. You know, it no longer alarms you. Because you know, it's like if you are, maybe you have some asthma, it is a problem, it disturbs you, but you learn how to live with it. It's a chronic condition. Or you have some diabetes, you learn how to live with it, it's a chronic condition. What COVID did, what Ukraine has done, is now to inject a new infection on the chronic infection. You know, when COVID came, we warned the people who had other illnesses. You remember? Wegendereze COVID netakwata kubanga ejja kutwala nga balala tebanafa. Bw'oba olinamu high blood pressure, a chronic condition, diabetes, asthma, those are chronic conditions you life. But if the acute infection of COVID finds the chronic problem, then you are gone. In the medical terms, we call it acute on chronic. And that is what takes you, not the chronic one, but this one which has come. So COVID and Ukraine found a chronic crisis. Are we together? Ukraine and COVID lockdowns were an acute condition on the chronic crisis. And that's why we are in more trouble than those who did not have underlying conditions. We are in real trouble. But it's also trouble that, you know, every cloud, as they say, has a silver lining. And by the way, many people are dying. I don't know whether you know it. There are many people dying now. Every day there is burial everywhere. It's the crisis. They are acute on chronic. Kubanga ne alia olunaku olumu kati takyakola ki? Takyalya. The ones who were borrowing from here to pay the other debt, borrowing from there to pay the other debt, now have nowhere to borrow even. So many people are in a total crisis. And the flip side of that, the advantage of that is that those who had become used to the crisis say, Munange, Uganda wetu, katutambulirawo. Those who were used to the crisis now know that it's a matter of death, life, and this. It's like when there was that Delta variant which came. Those who did not know the use of masks, I saw everybody put on a mask. So Ugandans, I am seeing, because we only started the wake-up call for I think 2 days or 3 days. But already I am getting, and I'm sure all of you are getting, information from all over the place, people saying, yes, let's continue, too far, because the situation is now ripe. Everybody saying, yes. So, and that's what is frightening Mr. Museveni, because he has nothing to respond. He has absolutely nothing. It's not that he doesn't even want. Even in his own selfish interest of wanting to stick on to power, he would have wanted to do something, but he has nothing to do. He has borrowed money. Tons and tons of money. The budget you hear is 49 trillion. It's what they are spending. A lot of it is going to pay debts. So he's even not going to use it. And those who took whom he borrowed from are on his neck. Some are already threatening to take the airport, others are threatening to take what, So he has very little, and it's from them that he wants to borrow even a little more to keep on breathing. So the people of Uganda have an opportunity, a rare opportunity now. First of all, that the situation, the fire is on their buttock, they have no luxury to to sit down. Yes, because previously they were saying, ebyo byaba Besigye, byaba Lukwago, ebyo byaba kale byaffe. The fire is now on the buttock. There is nowhere to sit. You see? And they are going to come up. So, what we are doing, there are two things to be done. The first thing, which will solve the whole problem, is to end the control of our state by an armed cabal. That is what will liberate the whole country. But even before we do that, that is treating the chronic. And we must treat the chronic crisis. But even before we treat the chronic crisis, what is for people to survive. In order to face the chronic crisis, we must first deal with the acute crisis that is there. The cost of living crisis. That is the acute crisis that is now here, which is killing people. That's what we must start with to address. So all these people who are burning, what will put off the fire immediately is to manage the cost of living. And it is manageable. It can be managed. The money to put off the fire is there. Only that the people who have become used to living in opulence that they created, which created the chronic crisis, the people who live in opulence will not easily change their style so that others can escape death. They have to be forced. So the money is there, and this is where it is. And we have been talking about this. What everybody who has fire on his buttock should demand is that immediately the size of government and the cost of government must come down so that money goes to the people. The money is there. The cost must immediately come down and the size must come down. You can imagine a highly indebted poor country having 82 ministers. 82 ministers. And you just hear 82, but 82 has a lot of tentacles on each one of those. First of all, now every minister is guarded by, there are no police vehicles, they are guarding ministers. There are no policemen hunting down thieves, they are guarding the thieves in the form of ministers. You know? All that is money daily, allowances, what? Fuel, moving up and down. We must demand that immediately, before the new budget, before July, this money should come to the people of Uganda. We should not have more than 15 ministers. United States of America, which has the largest economy on earth, which has a population of 300 million people plus, has 15 ministries and 15 cabinet ministers. So, why should 40 million poor people need all these people? They are advisors, all ministers. The work of ministers is to advise the president. That's the work of a minister. But on top of those ministers, the president has presidential advisors, also on rank of minister. Those are unaccountable. Also with vehicles, with what? You know, you look for the list. The last time I checked, they were 114, and they have nobody is ever reshuffled or what. They keep on increasing. I don't know the number now, including the full figures and all these. butcher man, advisors, with vehicles, with offices, with what, security guarding them, you know. This is absolute criminality. It has to end immediately. So Ugandans must demand that effective 1st July, our money is not used on these stupid things. It comes to solve the problems of the people of Uganda. All these RDCs all over the country, RDC also has guards guarding RDC, you know, and nobody even knows all these people. Even the ministers, if a minister walked on Kampala, nobody will know that this one is a minister. So what they fear, even to have all these things surrounding them. RDCs have security, have vehicles, have what? What do RDCs do? They were supposed to be representatives of central government in the district. Now the cow had been decentralized. Cow was re-centralized. So now you have two central government representatives in the district, cow and RDC. Why? So RDCs and their deputies must head for home to plant cassava so that cassava can increase in the cassava republic. By July, no salaries for RDCs and all these useless people. We must make it clear, draw a line in the sand. You know? Even the structure, they said the size of government. We all must rationalize government. Why should we have 529 members of parliament? Why? And every election they increase by so many of poor people. And then each one we have to buy a vehicle of 200 million. And each one we have to pay so much. And once they get there, they also add on their own things. You saw now they have put 193 billion on top of what they were earning. While the others remain the same or are even going down. You know? This is not on. And right-thinking members of parliament should actually oppose this. They just fight that because they are ATMs of the constituencies, everybody in the constituencies is demanding government services from them. Why should they allow that? Government services should be provided by those supposed to provide them. Why should a member of parliament be the one buying an ambulance? What is the government doing? And using the money of the government. Because the member of parliament takes money from government to buy the ambulance. Why? Why not put it in the Ministry of Health where it can be most effectively used? So, things must change and must change quickly, now. They must change. No time for playing around. No. This is not a situation where Museveni, will bluff his way out of a crisis. No. This is no time to tinker around the edges of a problem. No. We must face the crisis head on and solve it. The people who have stolen our money, and they are known. They are here in town, all of them. officially found by parliament. This one took 60 billion, that one took how many billion, this one took these billions. Nothing happens. This money must come back to the people of Uganda, and it caused sort of these problems. It must be the demand of the people of Uganda, bring back our money, and it solves these problems. You know? We said since last year that our forces shouldn't go to Congo, where billions upon billions have been spent. We are now constructing boreholes in Congo, constructing I don't know what in Congo, roads, on top of maintaining troops there. The only credit I have had from the military is that they dispersed the ADF. Now that is a joke for anybody who has any knowledge of military engagement. Of course, ADF is a guerrilla force. Maybe the young people who are in Congo, the Muhangas, didn't live through guerrilla life and think that dispersing a guerrilla is an achievement. That's a normal thing. Once the government troops come, you disperse. That's the automatic thing you do. Because they have concentrated, you disperse. So that they themselves have to disperse to chase all of you. And once they disperse to chase all of you, you come back again and knock one by one. That is... So you can't say, you know, we have been in Congo and we have dispersed these people now. How is that an achievement? But even if it was, even if there was some achievement, at what cost? Because what drove those ADFs into Congo, if it has not been removed, even if you kill all of those in Congo, others will go there, if the cause is still there. Because those ADFs are not Congolese, they are Ugandans. So, internal conflicts must be resolved by resolving the causes. That's where the focus should be. So our money, we said since last year that deployment was at a time when there is a crisis of this nature was unconscionable. And we continue to say so. The billions that are being budgeted for these reckless things should be spent on resolving this crisis. If we use this money, you know, of course the money that is going to State House must stop, should not appear in the July budget. That's 680 billion. There is even, I think, 80 billion or so for his donations, those whom he wants to give something, handouts for his envelopes. There are even billions for that. This must change. You hear that a speaker has bought a vehicle for $1 billion 1.2 in a crisis. You already have vehicles, but you want the most modern. And you buy 2 vehicles for 2.5 billion. 2 vehicles for the speaker. These speakers here. Why? They may even not know how to sit in them. Because we know them. come from Primo to a vehicle of $1 billion, you have problems how to adjust in it. You know? So this problem is solvable. The money to deal with the acute crisis is there. The money to deal with the acute crisis is there. We only need to apply it where it is needed. And this brings me to the last point, but possibly the most important point. So, we have an acute crisis. The money to solve it is there, but the authority to put it where it is needed is not there. Because I can talk, we can talk about all these things, you can see it possible, but how does it happen? How will that money, how will that money leave the Bank of Uganda for the right destination? How? Because Mr. Museveni won't listen to what we are saying. His lifestyle will not change. Has anybody even had him suggesting the slightest that he needs to adjust anything on his side? Nothing. And he will not be prepared. You remember even when there was no crisis of such a magnitude, he said he will not have medical care from, you know, these Ugandan fellows whom he can't trust, or his family cannot be looked after by Ugandans. So he won't. And his armed cabal is there to safeguard his interest. Of course, when I talk about armed cabal, we should understand that I was part of it. I was part of that force. The greatest majority in that force don't agree with what that force is used to do. There is absolutely no doubt. Most men in uniform or uniforms are concerned about what is going on. They themselves are captive. I told you that when the cabal captured the country, the Museveni family captured the cabal itself. So they themselves, they are captive. And they are used to do what they are doing, not with their conscious acceptance of what they are doing. But that's the structure of force. Order comes from above, and if you hesitate to carry it out, you are in trouble. So, he has that cabal. How shall we get what we want? This is the debate the country must understand. Let's have this conversation. Some people are calling for dialogue. Say, let's go and talk to Museveni and say, you can also see him into it. There are those who are of that suggestion. Kubanga bwe tutamwegayirire tetulina kyakukola. Ajja kututta. Tugende tumwegayirire. There are those who are saying like that. There are some of our people who say no. We still have a chance in 2026. Let's be patient. Let's organize from below how to win these elections. If we organize well, we get candidates. Maybe we even get one candidate for president. 2026, God may help us. There is that conversation, you know. What? Of course, some may even say, let's also join ADF nafe tulufune mundu tulwane. Kowoli yao. There are those who are saying, you know. What we are simply, and what we've told the people, is that in the PFT, we don't believe that dialogue kwegayirira by itself kulwacho tujja kuteebwa, tujja kusumulwa. We don't believe that dialogue in itself will lead to the money going where it is supposed to go. It won't happen. We don't believe that elections in and of themselves conducted by captive institutions will lead to the change that Ugandans now urgently need. We believe that Ugandans, to get what they want, must fight for it. There are no two ways. What PFT does not believe in is to fight with guns. And for a good reason. Because if we fight with guns, we can defeat the guns of Museveni. But who will control our own guns? What will stop our own guns doing what the guns of Museveni are doing? Who will control our own guns? Because when I joined Museveni to fight the guns of the Obote Rutwa governments, we thought that those were bad guns, ours were good guns. But our guns became worse than the guns we had defeated. So even now we can defeat these guns, but the guns that defeat them become even worse. So what the country must prepare for and execute is to defeat the guns without using guns. And that's the task that PFT has set itself on. Now, how is it executed? The first thing is what we have talked about, that everybody must know that in order to get out of this, they have to do something. Which is why we are waking up everybody. That's why you heard me sing Bavubuka muzukuke twegate tutase siafe. The starting point is people to wake up. Everybody must wake up. And our phase we are in now has been disrupted. We've lost 2 weeks. Is to make sure everybody wakes up, understands the crisis and how we must act quickly, very quickly. They must understand how we must act very, very quickly and decisively. And the good thing with defeating guns when you don't have guns is that actually you incur the least losses. That's what some people don't understand. When you take guns to fight guns, both you people with guns die, but a lot more without guns also die. But when there are guns there and you are here without guns, you can fight the guns when a minimum number of people get injured. And we shall be demonstrating how. And I have been reminding Ugandans that it is the same Ugandans bajajjaffe abawangula abazungu. The British did not leave control of Uganda willingly. And the ones who defeated them did not have guns. The I.K. Musazis, the Augustine Kamias, the Basuddes, they did not have guns. But they organized ordinary people to make it impossible for the British to keep on controlling the country. So it's not like we are pioneers. No, we are not pioneering. It's possible. If our judges could do it against the British, who make the guns? Museveni makes no gun. He uses second hand also. How can we fail to defeat this one? So, if people wake up and organize, and that's the other thing, organize, when we say tuegate, that is what? Organizing. And this is why I was very happy when at the beginning I talked about the unity I saw at the court of all MPs coming together. If we mobilize and unite, and those like you who are leaders, make sure wherever you are, people are organized in groups. Mubinja abalwana bazimba ki ebibinja jimuli yonna muzimba ebibinja bantu 10 5 nga buli omu alina abakulembera. That is this phase. Ati bwe tugamba nti omwezi nga tegunaggwako leero ziri mmeka 10 tegugenze. So we must work over time if we want to influence how money changes in the next few days. So we have to awaken people, to organize them. Now, while doing this, let's be very clear and conscious. We must be conscious that those who hold us captives are not seated. They are working very hard. They are even seated here, or their agents will be seated here, giving them what we are saying in a timely manner. And they will be planning how to counter whatever we are trying to do. That's why it's a struggle. One of the major ways they will try to counter us is to divide those they dominate. The divide and rule principle, don't forget it at all. And I have already seen it, you know, starting to build up. The divide and rule. I have said that all of us who want change may think of using different approaches. We may not all think the way PFT thinks. And that is normal, that is fine. We don't have to think the same way. I ask all of you fighters, never to turn your gun on the other fighters because they don't agree with what you are doing. No. Sometimes the regime agents will hide amongst us and appear as if they are part of us to simply inflame, boil, foment conflict amongst us when they are actual regime people, officers even with offices there, will pretend to be PFT and start attacking other people who seek change, even if they may not seek it in the way we do. Now, the other people may think that indeed this is the PFT attacking them, and they also attack back. Within no time, you are distracted from where you are going. You are fighting amongst yourselves, not knowing that the other person you were fighting, the other side, is the one who is, you know, causing the trouble from within you. So we need discipline of the highest order amongst the PFT activists if we are to succeed. We need maximum discipline. Maximum discipline. And we must discipline those who act on PFT's behalf in doing wrong things. So we must keep each other on course. Tulifena bolabo wa PFT akyusiza mundu nga agitunusa mu mulwanyi omulala, oba oli awo bwe mutakanya nkola bwe munalwanamu, oyo mugamba nti kyokola kiki kijjeyo mangu, mulimu gwaffe guliwa guli wano. Era bwasigala agitunuza eno ng'otuyita naffe tukola ki, tumukuba mangu n'afuluma. But we are organized. If we become that organized, ekisembayo mu lutalo kye kitono ennyo. The last stage is the easiest. Once people have woken up, once they are organized, the action to enforce our will is the easiest. Very, very easy. Because once we have coordinated across the country and we say that at the end of the month, kino kyekirina okubeerawo nga abantu baffe buli omu yenna gyali asobola okukikola, kiba kikoze eki? Kiba kiwedde. So, we are going to continue awakening, organizing, and hoping against hope that time does not, fail us, that we cause the changes that will save our people by the 1st of July. Because that's when the new budget comes into force. We should work hard. That means, now our people must know that you will not get where you are going without the pain. Sleeping in a prison, why should it be a big problem? That's why I was very, very grateful to the women to defy the courts and say, no, you extend. After all, there is a free block of posho there. Yes, it's once a day, but it's a block of posho there. So if they want to take us there, this police threatening, what can the police do if we decide let 1,000 people tomorrow go to the CPS for them to lock you up? Mugende babasibe ku CPS. Mweweyo mugende babasibe 10. Olunga bakyatetenkanya we balutwala olulala 10 lukoleki luyingirewo. Bakyebuuza bakoleki nabano olulala 10 lukoleki luyingirewo. Banakolaki? We can disarm them in no time. All we need is just people waking up and deciding what to do. So let's say, tuleme kutya makomera. Bajja kutugalira. We must continue with the struggle. Ate bwe batwala omu abalala 10 ne bajja n'omu bajja kumusesema. The reason they take us in and keep us is because bakutwala ne wabula ekikola ki ekigenda mu maaso. Era kye nali mbagamba nti bwe bansalako naawe okole ki? Naawe salako woli. Saleko naawe osaleko. Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I pointed out, my very clear sense, and indeed that of all of us in the PFT leadership, is that the end of this crisis is in sight. The end is in sight. We can achieve it. We should go for it. We should intensify our effort. We should not again, start being, sorry for ourselves. These women who were in prison, they all had young children at home. But they said, this is time for struggle. The children will somehow survive. That is the spirit of the struggle. If you start saying na kati omwana mulekawa kati ani anamutwala kusomero kati kati landlord, things will sort themselves out later. We must first sort out the country ebirala bijja kutereera. So those are the two messages that we wanted to deliver at this conference. I'm sure you may have some questions. Which we can deal with. Yesterday was a day they attribute to heroes. And it's true that this country has had real and many heroes that need to be celebrated. And hopefully, when the country regains its sovereignty of the people will celebrate their heroes. The heroes who are being celebrated now are heroes of the junta. And we pay no attention whatsoever to whatever they are doing. I am still extremely fortunate that at least of all the bad marks, nobody has considered me for a medal of the junta, because I think it would be a bad sign. Thank you very much. You can ask questions.
Questions, colleagues from the media house, and keep it short.
Appears there is no question. Now, maybe what I didn't touch on when I was talking about control and exploitation of citizens, the cause of the crisis. I talked about the common assets, the public assets which were stolen through that sham privatization. And then I talked about the exploitation of taxes. What is another form of highly pernicious exploitation is the commodities that Ugandans produce. You remember what we now know as cash crops were introduced by the British. Rather than taking Ugandans as slaves to grow crops abroad, when they realized how eventually dangerous that was, they chose to use Africans to grow the crops on their own land, and then they take the crops. So they brought the cash crops: cotton, coffee, tobacco, tea, and others. And they determined the price. They would give you just enough to cover your costs, and they take the crop. So it was one highly exploitative method of taking resources out of Africa. Now this has, as I said, intensified under the NRM regime. Intensified. And you should check out who controls cotton in Uganda. It is the Museveni family. Who controls coffee? It is the Museveni family. Even before this controversial penalty, it was the Museveni family. Who controls gold, which is the #1 export? It is the Museveni family. So, yes, there has been a lot of excitement about penalty and the coffee agreement. And, you know, sometimes indeed Museveni is he speaks the truth by accident, and he makes some of such accidents. So in the State of the Nation address, you heard him say that this woman you are fighting against did not know anything about coffee. It is me. It is him who brought her and entrusted her and made the agreement for her. He confessed that they should not trouble Peneti. It is himself. And I can assure you that that agreement will go ahead. Even with that agreement, without that agreement, he was controlling the coffee anyway. But he wants greater control, and that will also go. Even when the parliament made that that resolution, it's not the end of it. Pinet will still be there. You just keep watching. Museveni does whatever he wants to do, because he has anyway. Parliament doesn't have. So they may please themselves, go and make a resolution, but what he wants eventually goes on. You remember, but resisting is good, and I am grateful to members of Parliament that resist. I think that all NRMs cannot be part of the struggle. They were NRM members of the committee. He took them to State House. They said, no, no, no. We have already written our report. We shall take it to Parliament. We shall not change it. He said, put an annexure about what I have said. They said, no, no, no. That will be amending the report. We shall not do that. And they read the report as it was, and it was adopted. But he will force his way still. Just like land. Coming into, among the things he read to be implemented in the next parliament, one of them is the taking of land compulsorily again. This has come up time and time again. It started in the Constituent Assembly, where I was, wanting power for himself to take over any land by force in the law. Ugandans have resisted, even his NRM have resisted. But it is coming back in this July. That bill of compulsory taking land is already on the list. So, coffee is the same thing. All these things will be taken unless we reclaim the country. If we don't reclaim the country, all other things are lamentation. You know? Some people are saying that I talk in Uganda, but